Hello, welcome to Body Changes Month. I am chatting with Sophia Cleverly. Sophia, tell me what you do.
I help women get back their zest for life, be more of themselves, beyond their symptoms, and create a roadmap for the next part of their life, the best part
Perfect.
of life.
Love it. So, body changes. You must see so many people struggling with the kind of head aspect of the fact that their body is changing.
You sum it up as ever really, really, really well. Yes, the head aspect, the heart aspect, and what we find, what I see. So I work partly for the NHS as a wellbeing coach and social prescriber, and also privately with my favorite women, midlife women. And what mainly starts to happen is this aspect, oh, there are changes, there's a difference, I can't control it. And that feeds into a kind of anxiety, loss of confidence. So anxiety, loss of confidence or reduced confidence, a desire to change, self-criticism, and that plays back into the whole thing. So
Yeah, God, that
how?
was in early perimenopause. That was totally me. I,
Yeah.
I, I can't. I mean, it was a dark place. It
Mm.
was. I'll just quickly go off on a tangent because I think it'll help anyone watching this to sort of just to show that we get it really.
Yeah.
Um, my body shape started changing quite significantly in early perimenopause, and I remember what it's laughable now. It really was not funny at the time. My mum was visiting; she lives abroad, and she was like, "Oh, let's take you shopping. Let's go and do some shopping." And I hate changing rooms in shops. I'm yet to find a changing room in any clothing shop that is actually a kind representation of what you look like. But anyway, that's another story.
Lighting.
I know. But we went into this one shop and I just, because my body shape had changed, but my head hadn't caught up with that. And so I didn't recognize who I saw in the mirror. I mean, I was just in floods of tears. I was just in floods of tears. And I was at the point, I was this close to going out of that shop over the road into a chemist's and buying all of the fat loss pills. That was how low I was in that moment. Now, I realize now that with all the changes of my body, it hasn't changed my personality. It hasn't changed who I am. It hasn't changed the core essence of the person. But at that time, it was hell.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's going to be a moment, I think, for most of us where we go, oh, what's this? Or I haven't had to deal with this before. Or this reminds me of something I dealt with before, or I thought I dealt with. And so for me, I hear your moment. Just interestingly enough, Emily, what made you not go into the chemist and get those diet pills?
Because I know they don't work.
Okay. So what did you do?
Um, I cried quite a lot. And then mum did get me a few clothes. And then I realized that in my own mirror at home, they actually looked okay.
Mm.
But that was, it was quite a long journey.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a long journey, and that change, it doesn't happen overnight. We get 8 years, whatever it is, that magical timeline to menopause to reconsider and I think befriend ourselves and our bodies with all the changes. And I think we can focus a lot on the look and not so much the feel and the function and pleasure and enjoyment. And that's all driven by how we've spoken to ourselves for a long time. And it's, so I had a similar but different experience, which I see with lots of the women I work with as well, unfortunately. But basically, early 40s, the anxiety started hitting in. I had some dental work done, and somehow that reduced kind of intake basically of food, etc., set me back into an eating disorder that I thought I'd put to bed. And yeah, it was really awful. But when you're in it, you're in it. And maybe some of the ladies here realize, I'm sorry, I mean, maybe we should put a trigger warning in front of this, because I would like to talk about this.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it just threw me back in there. And it took a while to realize, for me to realize. And the feedback I was getting from the externally, from the world around me, was, wow, you've lost a lot of weight. Wow, look at you, you're tiny. Let alone the fact that I was feeling dizzy half the time and had a busy family and just couldn't really understand what was happening, because I was in a different state of mind.
Yeah.
But what helped me was, because I'd put all that kind of to bed, or I thought I had a long time ago, I knew I could do it again. So it wasn't 15-year-old Sophia starting on a journey of 15 years. It was, 41-year-old Sophia starting on a journey of, oh no, I can't afford to do this. I've got 3 children. No, oh, this is what's happening. I've got the awareness. But I see that happening a lot. And I haven't heard it a lot out there. And it impacted my mental health. And it did impact my bone density, probably both episodes together, but particularly that one, I think, because your bone density, we're using up much more bone that we're making, more bone than we're making gradually. So that is all part of body changes. And now I have osteopenia, but I am in a stronger place than I have ever been, So both in awareness and compassion with myself. And that's why self-compassion is a huge piece of what I help women do. And curiosity, noticing what are these changes, but just also being that element, bringing an element, that self-compassion, self-talk. How are you going to talk to yourself now moving forward with all these changes that are happening, some of them in spite of you, and the things that you were doing before to help don't work. So lots of women get on a treadmill, I'm going to run, I'm going to keep on running, I'm going to do this, I'm going to run marathons, I'm going to do this. I think you and I had a bit of that. And that spikes cortisol, and that doesn't help what's happening around here, which is what around this middle bit, where women, we tend to put, weight on around this middle. So yes, that is an aspect that I feel isn't talked about very much. And it's all to do with, something that can happen, which is how we've spoken to ourselves before. We haven't changed that. So that self-critic becomes louder. We speak about this every time I meet you, this critical voice that becomes louder in perimenopause.
So we've both been really vulnerable here, which is unusual for these. Normally we're very much kind of, right, here's what we do. But I think that makes it actually more valuable. So what tools have you found have helped you and help your clients to build that self-compassion, to build that, to quiet that negative voice?
We both have been very vulnerable with it, haven't you? I feel like a little, I feel love for you, and I feel this kind of yes, it was difficult in that place. So for anyone who's finding themselves like we did in that difficult place, we get you.
We do.
We really get you. And there is a way to move forward. There really, really, really is. So there we go. We're here in the hug.
Yes, in a big hug. There it is.
So understanding that why your body is changing, I think, is one of the pieces. And there are lots of lovely experts who help with that here and out there. So why might that be? Is stress and anxiety playing a big part? Is it your hormones chucking you about and you can't get on top of things as much as you were? What part of it? Because we're talking about body changes, but our hormones changing are body changes.
Absolutely.
and they affect everything. So when women come to see me, we do a wheel of life, I call it. And it's if you think of an orange or a wheel, whatever you prefer. I love an orange because I love oranges. And there are 8 segments to this wheel or orange. And you're kind of rating your level of satisfaction in your life in those segments. And they include your health and vitality, your relationship with yourself, your relationships with friends and family, romance, your immediate environment, career, finances. So this kind of wheel of seeing your life holistically outside of you, saying, okay, I feel satisfied from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most satisfied, 0 being not. So that takes some vulnerability to gain self-awareness of where you are. I also use a perimenopause wheel of life, which has things in it like sleep and libido and body image and, you know, all those, you know, your mental health. So we want to look at everything holistically. And as you go round this wheel, you can be, oh, right, so my sleep is really, I can see here that my sleep is really low, but my fitness is, I'm really happy with that, or happier with that. So what that helps you do is pinpoint where you want to work more. So my mental health is really suffering. And obviously, as we know from this group, there are many different ways that you can do it, but you've got to start somewhere. So when you go to your doctor, and the GPs in our practice use this now, you can say, I've done these wheels, I'm looking and I can see that my sleep is what's being impacted most. Or, you know, my cycle is going bonkers. I've got, 31-day periods, and, or it's really painful, or I seem to be having Halloween style bleeds, or, a lot of pain that I wasn't having before. So all of this can come under this category of body changes, not just body image, but all of this can affect how you feel about yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think a lot of us feel as though almost our bodies are letting us down, somehow like betraying us. And I guess kind of like we felt in puberty, and there are a lot of similarities.
Yes, there are.
There are a lot of similarities. And it's interesting, isn't it, that for a lot of teenage girls, that is when disordered eating, or potentially an eating disorder, happens, because everything's changing and you've got no control over it. And so it stands to reason that these feelings might resurface if we haven't fully, not just put them to bed, but fully exorcised them.
Yeah, and kind of found a way to be with ourselves through them. I mean, we have the benefit of a fully functional prefrontal cortex as adults.
Yeah.
Which we don't have in those earlier teenage years. But, for many of us, we haven't found that self-compassion piece. So awareness is really important. And I think, most people nowadays cut teenagers a lot more slack than they used to. And teenagers themselves, that's a different ballgame. But we have an awareness of these things can happen in puberty, and oh, poor thing, she's having such a difficult time, let's explain, here's a period tracker, etc., etc. I didn't start tracking my periods until did you? No, you're shaking your head.
No, not until perimenopause, not until I didn't understand what was going on in my body.
Did not understand.
No.
Apart from what you learn in biology, which is basically reproduction. So how we want to understand, like, I can mention reproduction because I've just done it with my, at the time, 12-year-old, and there is no mention, none at all. I leaf through the KS, whatever it is, 3 book. There is no mention of how your cycle, women's cycle, 51% of us, affects our moods. Nothing. Or energy, or productivity, or mental capacity, nothing.
or appetite or food cravings or any of those things. And all of
Yes.
those, when we come back to the point of disordered eating and eating disorders, all of those things make us think we're failing every single cycle.
Every single cycle, yet you need more calories before your period.
Yeah.
Don't
And
stop.
I wish 13-year-old me had been given that information.
And me. So we kind of get a chance, like on the positive, on the silver lining side of it, we do get a chance to look to kind of parent ourselves better, be to have the awareness that we didn't have, and to also pass that on. Because many women, some women will have children, some women won't, but you might be an aunt, you might be a mentor to someone at work, etc., etc. So so there's that piece of awareness, what's going on in your body. Definitely track your cycle with regard to your sleep, all the things, and the perimenopause. I don't know if there's a way to link it, but I can send you the link to these resources. Yeah. Track your cycle in relation to your sleep. And some women say, oh, I've got coil, so I don't know. You still will be able
have a cycle.
Try, to notice these things, and you still will have a cycle. So things like anxiety might peak at certain times. Your sleep might go a bit more bonkers. You might need to eat more calories. You might be craving certain different foods. Your critic might be louder at different times. So tracking all of that gives you information. And the second part of it is the self-compassion piece. So how do we do it? Because we don't know how to do it, really. We know how to beat ourselves up really well.
Yeah, we're really good at that.
And compare. So I'm just going to read you something. So basically, if the second piece about the self-critic, because not another opportunity to beat ourselves up that we're critical, is the fact that society talks about women and our bodies and shows us now, I don't know if you've seen, shows us examples of women in their 40s and 50s and beyond looking amazing, showcasing their bodies, flaunting their figures, showing off. I've copied these out. So these headlines are basically, yes, toned physique. They're toned physiques. Yes, yes, all of this language around flaunting, showing off, the physique, forget what our bodies have been through our journeys from puberty to, for some of us, motherhood and having a baby, childbirth, for other of us not, but all this whole journey, and then this massive long-term transition of perimenopause. Oh no, we're just going to talk about anti-aging and having a toned midriff. So no wonder, I think we are also in perimenopause being affected by how the society around us, the media, are talking about women around our age. It's not just teenagers.
I have to say one thing that is an absolute tonic for all of that, because the headlines on all of the magazines are awful. There's a Facebook page called Man Who Has It All. And it is brilliant because they take these things and they turn it around. So they make it be on a man.
I love it.
And it's amazing. And honestly, when you start watching that Facebook page, I'm sure they're on Twitter and Instagram as well. I've only ever seen them on Facebook. When you start looking at that, you're like, this is ridiculous. Mm. Because when you hear all those adjectives being used in the context of a man, they're ridiculous.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So yes, it's great to flipping around that thinking is really, really great. And just noticing this inner critic, it can be a bit distressing because you're like, I'm talking to myself in a really horrible way and I don't know what to do. So questioning that voice, questioning that voice and saying, hey, I hear you. Is that really true that I am a blah, blah, blah? Is that really true that the whole world's going to judge me because I've sat down and I have a role? Is it really true that my whole life is, and success as a human hinges on the fact that I have or haven't got a size 12 or a size whatever. So flipping that around and learning a way to talk to ourselves compassionately. It's a learning.
It is.
It's time. So saying things like, you know, my body is, you know, wonderful. My body can do all these amazing things, and focusing on, you know, just focusing on the things that your body does for you. Our bodies are incredible.
They are.
You know, like even, do you know how many processes it takes to actually walk?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
To move your body.
And the thing is, like, even if for, you know, any number of reasons you aren't able to walk or whatever, your body is doing all the amazing things of smelling stuff and tasting food and hearing music and
Breathing.
Yeah, literally staying alive is a phenomenal thing.
So all those little things, and being able to notice what we, so kind of come out of our heads and come into our bodies.
Yeah.
So a lot of this self-criticism is just being in your head, which the current world and life that we live encourages, with social media, with use of computers, work, and in midlife we're torn in so many directions. So any amount of time you can get to be in your body and be present, so that would be called mindfulness, for example. And if sitting and breathing you think is difficult for you, it was for me. I have a very froggy type brain. You know, just really tasting, as you said, your food, sitting down and being really mindful about how, not starving yourself so that you can lose weight, but just mindful of the colors and the freshness and the smells and the tastes, and enjoying what you are eating, like really truly nourishing. So not just feeding, but nourishing ourselves. It's the season for nourishment. That's what I believe. It's a great season for nourishing ourselves more and enjoying.
Yeah.
So actually, you know, in terms of, you know, if you're finding that, you know, actually the things that you were doing before, spin classes, I don't know what, aren't working for you, maybe find something else that you enjoy.
Yeah. Absolutely. You know? And I think to have a very simple check and balance for yourself as you go through the day is, you know, it sounds very Marie Kondo, doesn't it? You know, does this spark joy? And I don't think that sounds really, but just going, does this add to my life, or is this draining from my life?
Yeah, and very simple example. Okay, so I used to work with teens and tweens, and we did this exercise with the parents, so midlife women usually, and we did it with the tweens. So the tweens and the teens were so happy doing it. It was called it was like a bridge. So they'd put their arms out, and one at a time would go through this kind of bridge that they'd created, human bridge. And as they went through, their friends in the group would say lovely things to them. You're amazing. I love the way that you speak. You know, I love you. You're great. All of it. And they would just walk through like this. You know, love it. Take it in. Even the teens and tweens, right? And you'd get their mums to do it, and they would be, I'm not kidding you, like this. Oh my gosh, it's so embarrassing.
That's heartbreaking.
So we repeated, and this is partly how I started working with midlife. I was like, wow, oh my gosh, what's happened? You know, what's happening with our self-talk? What's happening? We can't take in the goodness. You know, so kind of literally getting your head above water. If you don't have a tribe, there's a lovely one at Perimenopause Hub, you know, but like find the people and notice the things that build you up. And yes, that comes from the inside out, but it can also come from the outside in. So, you know, curate your feet.
Oh God, yes. But also one thing that I find is really powerful, and I think a lot of people, I think when I say it to people, they probably think it's just really silly, but paying a compliment to a stranger. Yes. So I love your dress, or whatever. And seeing how that makes that person's day. And then you start realizing, oh, okay, it's okay to take compliments. If I can give compliments, I can probably take compliments.
Absolutely.
And other people are seeing positive in me, just as I am seeing positive in other people. And it just helps to get you out of that.
Really, it really does. I love what you say. And, you know, anything like, you know, I was saying this to somebody the other day of, you know, looking at yourself in the mirror and just, you're gonna feel like a walk to begin with, but just looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you. And, you know, writing on your mirror, putting some sticky notes, nice sticky note, you know, on your mirror saying, you know, I love you. I love you. Just, I love you as you are. Just, I love you. And yeah, thinking about this, you know, pleasure as a pleasure. What brings me pleasure? You said what gives you joy, but sometimes our joy might be a bit dialed down at this part of life. It can be sometimes a big step. So
Yes.
the baby step is kind of feeling out with all our senses, you know, what brings me pleasure? I don't know if you can hear in the background, I have a wind chime where I sit and where I work. And it's probably the best investment I've made in the last 8 years. So everybody find one you like. Or something, you know, what brings me pleasure, what brings me back to me, what gives me those moments of pleasure and, you know, giving back into you. Because that pleasure, you know, an orgasm would be lovely, in any shape or form. But, you know, focusing on pleasure is a really low-key, self-compassionate way to help ourselves on this self-compassion journey, which will bring everything down, dial everything down, because it helps us be present. It's not about the future or the past. We're here now.
Yeah.
So I think those are small steps towards that will sustain us on this journey. And just knowing that no one's just got it. No one.
No one has at all.
No one.
And I think that is a really, really important thing, because I think I'm laughing about it because it you know, that penny dropped for me a couple of years ago. I was like, oh, everyone's winging it. Right. Okay. So actually those people don't have it more together than me at all. But they've managed to fake it enough that it looks like they've made it. Ah, okay. I can probably do that too.
Yeah. And what, instead of comparing, is just taking, okay, is there something in that person's story, which is how it's so helpful that we share our stories. And thank you for sharing that part of yours. Is what's helpful for me now in that person's story? You know, not to compare, but to say, oh, okay, all right, as you said, well, that's maybe something that I can take on board a little bit of, you know, a little bit of. Maybe that would help me, but actually doing something about it, not just consuming content.
Yes.
So those would be my top tips. And lastly, if you are suffering from body dysmorphia, which is looking in the mirror and really seeing what other people are, you know, your husband, for example, or your partner, or, you know, not other people are seeing, or really struggling with how, you know, limiting your food, or bulimia, which is, you know, getting rid of your food, or over exercising, any one of those things to control your weight, please do seek help. There's a wonderful charity called BEAT, BEAT. Be brave, and, you know, do reach out. Don't suffer alone. BEAT are wonderful, and there's lots of resources on there to help, because you can turn it around.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sophia.
Thank you. I love seeing you. Thank you so much, Emily.